Today we got to play Roman Roll. So basically, you are a
Roman.
A Roman. Hey, I'm specifically a high-level bureaucrat in charge of colonies and maintaining the army. That's what my job is. Everyone's got different characters so that everyone has different special abilities that they can eventually gain access to the game. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell because you want to hear about some awesome games. Especially with Gen Con coming up. We're all going to be there, so we're going to do some interviews. We're definitely going to show you guys the trade show floor. There's going to be a lot of cool content that's going to come out with that. So super excited. So you really don't want to miss that.
Yeah, and we'll be showing you our purchases as we get them. Not sure if it will be quite as many as our normal, but
we'll do it.
We might be able to walk on the floor this
comments,
time.
If nothing else, maybe we can help out play game.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to hang out with you. And who knows, maybe you can do a review with us.
And we have T-shirts.
Yeah.
For the first few people that come and join us and beat us in games.
We got T-shirts to give away. Yeah, you can beat us at a game. All right, guys. Well, let's talk about Roman Roll. Tell us more about it.
Came out in 2020, so it's still a pretty new game. It looked like it's pretty hard to get. I only found retail for Miniature Market. I didn't see it any other website available right now, other than the Geek Market. Plays 1 to 4, BGG rating 7.1. The designer is Nick Shaw, and a pretty big name in board games, David Turtsey. He helped design this. Art by Andreas Resch, published by PSC Games. MSRP is $45. Geek Market, I saw for $39.
Okay. Yeah, just slightly though. So it's holding up value really well.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about quality of pieces. So this is a roll and write, except automatically they give you the dry erase boards. Because in most roll and writes you have to buy upgraded features. That's not the case with this one.
Or you laminate it yourself and do it.
Yeah, or you laminate it yourself. That's not the case. They already set you up with the boards as well as the actual main board that you guys use. They give you the markers, and I actually thought that they were pretty decent markers. I mean, compared to some of the
I am not in favor of the dry erase roll and writes. I'd rather have pencil and paper. Just because it's so easy to wipe off marks you do on this board and on the map, and it can really screw things up.
I think they worked fine on the player boards. I think the issue is when you played them on the map, because everybody's hands are in there.
Yeah.
And I think the color choice of orange and brown may have been a bad choice.
It's difficult to see it on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the green was fine, the blue was fine. They could have done a black and...
Well, green was okay, except for when you were building on green.
The green.
Right.
Yeah, so, but overall, I mean, I think they tried to upgrade this. I think dry erase boards versus not are kind of a player's choice, specifically with playability, right? Like, I agree with you. I prefer pen and paper, and I would rather just buy a pad later on when I run out. But some people would rather not have to invest more in a game that they've already bought. So if that's the case, this is definitely the one for you. The cards are linen finish. I feel like they're pretty good. You don't shuffle them or anything, so they don't need high quality, but they definitely feel
Were these
very
the only
nice.
cards in the game?
No, there's extras you swap out. There's you play with a certain number of each type. And
are there like a lot more?
Not a lot. There's only a handful more. The dice are very reminiscent of the ones from Seasons. If you played Seasons.
Oh yeah, there you go.
The dice is one of the best parts of the game.
The dice are really heavy, hefty. They're good
chunky
thickness.
dice.
They're bigger than normal dice.
Yes, needed to, because you actually got to be able to see the icons. They're put 3 different icons on there. If they made them small, then you would have been like, can't see them, So
now this is the Kickstarter version. The differences the Kickstarter version adds is, first of all, there was an expansion for character expansion that added 3 more player boards to add more characters.
Okay.
They added in the miniature to separate, because the normal game comes with just the two of the meeples.
Okay.
So that gives you the miniatures to put on the board over there.
I'll show them the first player marker.
Well, that's where I'm going. The first player marker is this little miniature, which is pretty cool, and it's heavier than a normal miniature. But the dumb thing is it came as a set with all these other miniatures. Couldn't figure out what to do with them at first. Went on the Kickstarter site, realized what these were, is one references each one of the player boards. But there's no way to tell which one is which without going to the Kickstarter page and looking, because there's no name on these.
There's nothing on the miniature.
And there's no picture on the board that references the picture of the character. So there's no way to match them up. So it was kind of pointless to have those. So we didn't even play with them. We used just the meeples that come with it because they're color coded. You know, and the color coding is going to change because it's not, the player boards are not color coded. They're you know, you choose a color and then you get a player board. So there's really no way you would know except for if you wrote the name somewhere on this to say it's
on the bottom,
Nobilis or
you could probably get a small knife and pitch it into the
that's
bottom.
what you, I mean, is it?
Yeah, because as long as they're all started with a different letter, then you might be able to just put the first name, you know, the first letter.
It's probably the most pointless Kickstarter exclusive I've ever seen. So
well, I mean, they were trying to upgrade the pieces, which
I appreciate.
You know what
that.
they could have done the circles with the round that you could slide it in, so that color would be at the bottom.
But they're not color coded. If the player boards
no,
are different colors.
I'm saying, but if you chose green and you had Nobilis, then you put your green little bottom
it's a market,
on,
but you have to figure out which one was Nobilis.
Well, I just say you pick one, the one you want.
Clearly, that's Nobilis.
Yeah.
Because I said so. So there's that. You know, though, but the quality of pieces, it is, for a roll and write, it's actually pretty nice. I feel like I'm probably going to give this, especially because the miniature and the dice, I'm probably going to give this an 8. I feel like this is a really top-notch roll and write.
I like the dice. That's about the extent of it.
But the cards are nice.
Well, thematically, I want to give a little bit of a better score, but on component quality, it's all right. I mean, it's not bad either. I'm more of a 7.
Okay, what do you think?
I'm probably right there with Rob. I think it's a 7. If these had functionality to them, I would care. But again, this is a Kickstarter version. In this case, this is probably the first game I would say don't really care about the Kickstarter. I would just get it retail.
No, but then you don't get the little miniatures.
No, you get wooden meeples. I mean, it's not.
And you get the additional players.
Well, you can buy those as an expansion. Just you can.
These don't really add anything.
I agree. I don't see
They're
value
nicer looking.
to back a full price expansion versus buying a discounted retail. I'd buy a discounted retail and just have the meeples. I just don't see enough value to add for the Kickstarter.
They're so itty bitty; they'd be hard to paint.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I don't care about the painting.
So,
well, that'd be the only reason why I'd want minis.
I think they're being negative Nancy over here.
I think a 7's fair.
I think a 7's a solid score.
That's not my book, but okay. So let's talk about actual theme. I do think it's spot on for Rome. I mean, you're going to conquer places. You're trying to get prestige. You got advisors that you're trying to bribe. You've got coin that you're trying to make. You're trying to connect your places that you've conquered. I mean,
I kind of miss not being able to go to a bathhouse. So.
Maybe that's one of the other cards.
Maybe
that should have been one.
That could be the leisure because there's always a leisure one in there.
I do think that there should have been a bathhouse. I agree with you. I feel you on that one. Theme-wise, I think it's spot on. I love the fact that, oh, look, I'm a bureaucrat and I'm controlling things. And that's actually what I did. I was like, oh, look, it tells me what to do.
That was my favorite part of the game, was the fact that every character was
asynchronous,
just asynchronous and its ability fit with what your starting abilities were. It really felt like you were that character and your strategy played into that.
I think that the asynchronous abilities just felt Roman.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're doing this, well, I'm taking advantage of that. Because I'm a jerk and you're a jerk and we're being a jerk together, but I'm taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
And so just what you would see or what you've heard about, whether through history or even some television shows, like Rome or something like that.
And mine was all about schmoozing and bribing
and mine was just all about just taking advantage of you guys. You do this, I get to do it too.
Yeah, mine was to conquer, and that is what I did. So I think overall this was actually pretty spot on for theme. I am probably going to give this a 9 on theme. I really enjoyed it. I really got into the story, and I was down with it. So, what about you guys?
I don't think it's that strong. I think this is where an 8 is appropriate. I think it is definitely better than your standard average. I don't think it's got anything like exciting about art. There's nothing that really.
I think the art's nice.
It's fine, but I mean, even the art on the cards is pretty plain. It's not super exciting. It's okay, but I think it's a solid 8 as far as.
What about you?
I'm going to be the in-betweener this time, which is my first ever. So take a note. I'm an 8.5.
You all need to change chairs?
No.
Okay.
So I'm an 8.5. I agree with both of you, and I'm right in the middle of that. I think thematically it fits. Thematically, the mechanics fit, which is always nice. But there could have been a little bit more. So.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to actual rules. Okay, so whatever he's going to say, I don't care. But this right here is amazing. It tells you everything you're supposed to do,
And the back.
and the back of the
playboards.
board. Like you have extra ones, and so you flip that over. It gives everything that you need. This is what I call a win, because even though I wasn't listening to him, I could still know what I'm doing because it says so on the board.
Well, to be fair, one of the Kickstarter, what do we call it, the promos when you expand, stretch goals.
Yeah.
Stretch goals. One of the Kickstarter stretch goals was getting this iconography on the back of the board. That would really, if I had been part of that Kickstarter, that would have cheesed me off big time.
Right.
So, I
you would
bought
think
it from
that should just be part of the game.
Exactly.
It should not be a Kickstarter stretch goal.
I got it after the Kickstarter was done, so it didn't phase me.
You got off Game Steward. Didn't
Yeah,
you?
I got it. Yeah, from Game Steward. But yeah, that would have really cheesed me if I had been part of the
Yeah.
Kickstarter.
But I bet it did
stretch
cost extra, and but it's really
Yeah,
nice.
but I agree
appreciate
with
it.
Andy. Rainey, it feels like one of those TMG add-ons that should have just been part of the game.
Yeah.
Well, probably.
So, as far as the actual rulebook, it's a really nice rulebook. It's 28 pages long, which was actually fairly intimidating. And the first time I got this out, we were going to play it, and I put it back because I saw it was a 28-page rulebook.
Dude, you should have just kept this.
The good thing is that told me, oh, this is going to be meatier than your typical roll and write, which it was. And then, I was like, we don't have time to learn a meaty roll and write, so it's going back on the shelf. So,
but I'm glad you quickly got it back out.
I got it back out and read it. I had to actually reread it 2 days later because I'd forgotten enough about it. The thing is, there's a lot of little idiosyncratic rules in this game that really, it was a struggle to remember every minute detail of the rule book.
And in that regard, it felt a little clunky.
Yeah, it felt a little awkward, but we'll get to that in gameplay more. But the trick was trying to remember all those things, and the cheat sheet on the board didn't go into detail enough to tell you all those, so you had to remember to go back in here. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 7.5 because it is pretty clear reading it what everything is. It's just trying to remember all those little clunky rules.
Right.
Well, I'm going to give it an 8 because the boards are amazing. That's me.
Okay.
All right, listen. For me, rules is about the cheat sheet, and this cheat sheet is pretty awesome. So that's why it gets me. What do you give it?
It's a meh.
Oh.
That's my score.
Okay. Meh.
Meh.
All right, so let's actually talk about gameplay. So first, you start out with 2 dice for each player plus 1, and then you end up drafting the dice. Now on the dice there are different icons. Those icons relate to resources and icons that let you do certain kinds of actions. So each dice is worth an action. There are 3 different actions that don't require any special icon to do those actions. One of them is conquer, tax, and trade, and we'll go a little bit more into those. The other icon is the hammer, which lets you build. There's also an architect steeple thing that also lets you build, and then the hammer also lets you do expand.
Did you just call it an architect steeple thing?
Yeah. That's exactly what it
I'm
looks
sure
like.
that's the technical term for that.
It totally is. It's all that matters.
You know,
you see it, you would know.
steeple.
All right, and then the flag, and the flag is for rallying your troops. And then there's a scroll that is for any of those. It's a wild.
Any worker action.
Any worker action. But the dice itself is the action, okay? So if I had resources, so for example, this is a build and a brick and a wood. I can choose to use that build action to complete construction or expand, or I could choose to do one of the ones that don't require any type of icon, the conquer, tax, or trade. So just kind of keep that in mind. The dice itself is the action. You always get the resources, but then you trade in that die for the actual action. We typically put it back in the box so we knew which dice we used after the drafting piece. And it is like Catan when you draft, it's and then back around. So the last person takes 2. And then, so let's talk about the different actions. So you have construction. It's pretty straightforward. You have the buildings that you're allowed to build. If the card does not have a meeple on it, you get to place it on there, and then you get to, if you look at the cards, on this red banner, it tells you what the cost is. So you spend those resources, and then you build the building. By building the building, you're going to take the shape here. You can turn it, you can flip it, you can do whatever you want with it, as long as it contains, like 3 down and 2, do a little tail. And then you draw it on your board that is adjacent to your worker. Okay, so it has to be touching the building that your worker is actively on.
He's actually the overseer. That's his name.
Oh, the overseer. He's checking out the building, make sure
Very
they build it
Roman.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very Roman. Okay, so then you place that down, and then you move your worker to the new building. So the how you move is from building to building. If you need to get across the board or a few buildings over, every building that you move is a fish. So it's not every space; it's every building you move.
The first one is free. The second and any subsequent spaces are fish.
Oh man, I wish I would have known that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't know that. That's why I didn't move very much. I just kept building along my path, even though it was from away from my goal. I was just like, well, I'm already in this direction. All right, so the next is the Raise Legion. So some of your buildings will have a certain particular, the flag icon for the raising of the rally. So any of those get triggered when you do the Raise Legion. So that, depending on what they are, is depending on what you give you. For example, this one is you get to spend a jewel and you'll get 3 Legionnaires, or you gain 2 coins. Okay, so it's your choice for that. The other one that we had was that you get a straight up Legionnaire for it. And that allows you to build your army, which is down here, and you drag a line through here. All right, then the Conquer phase. So the Conquer is very straightforward. Up here on this board here, you have different locations that you can go conquer. So the thing about the legions is you have ones that are actively in your army and the ones that are being stored and garrison the places that you have already conquered. Okay, so the ones that I've already used for conquering, you cannot count them in your count when you go to conquer. So in this case, for example, I have 14 Legionnaires, but 9 of them are actively in cities, garrisoning and keeping control of those cities. So I could take any action that has 5 or less. So in that case, actually, all of them are available to me as long as I have access to them. And I can go here and I can just mark it out here, and then I've gained control of that city. And then I slash out one of my Legionnaires saying that they are garrisoned, because now I can no longer use that because they have to stay and maintain that city. Then the next one is the expand. So as you're creating these different cities, they need roads to these cities, right? That is one thing that the Romans did, is making sure the traveling system was safe and quick.
Roads still exist.
Yeah, some of those roads still exist, right? So in that case, that's the expand is actually creating those roads. So you take a stone, you spend a stone as an action, you can connect road. You can connect as many roads that are available through conquered cities in a particular area. So and that just depends. So what each place has, you cannot. So example is you can spend 2 stone, connect 2 cities that have already been conquered, but you can't connect to a city that hasn't been conquered yet. And when you do so, the person who owns those conquered cities gets those resources, but you get the victory points. And then the next one is the tax. So the tax is whatever conquered city you have in a particular area, you get those resources for that. With a little caveat to it is that if you have a special symbol, you actually generate all of your regions, which I wish I would have used more because I have several regions. I had 9 cities. All right, and then the last one is trade. So you trade in 3 matching resources. If they're jewels, you gain 3 money. So jewels are considered wild resources, but if you had the hand action, you get double the victory points if you use jewels. So it's a +1.
Oh, it's double per jewel.
Yeah,
Right.
double per jewel. And then all players trigger their gear action. So depending on the buildings you have gear actions that allow to be triggered at that point, and all those change. We're not going to go over the advisor abilities just because each player is different.
Yeah.
So just understand that if you have leftover resources after using a dice, if you have jewelry, fish, or a basket, you can use any of those to mark off the special
But
abilities.
they have to come straight from the die. They cannot come
Right.
from
Correct.
the ones you've reserved.
So you
And they
have
specifically say that on the board.
Yeah.
Too.
correct. After you complete those 4, your 5th one is to get 5 victory points from that advisor. Basically, you completely won them over. They're loyal for life. Okay.
I schmoozed all my advisors in the game.
That's
Are you
really
bragging?
Yeah,
Mhm.
just a little bit.
I brown nosed them very well.
I conquered all the cities. It's true. Not all of them. You took a few.
I took one whole area.
Yeah, I got
Hey,
the
Brown
rest
hasn't got me second place.
So basically, that is essentially the actions, and then so after the round's over, you keep going until all of. So if you'll on your player boards, you have these blue ones on these 4 different ones. When you hit one of the blue ones, on your board with that many, you get a Nero card. I ended up taking. Did I really end up taking a 3 of them?
No, one of them was mine.
Okay, I thought so. I got 2.
Yeah, you get 7 and 2.
I
You
ended
get
up
9
getting 2.
points.
All right, so basically they are in order. The greatest is above, so the first person to get to one of the blue markers gets one of these, and then it keeps going. When all 4 are used up, that triggers the end of the game. You finish the round and go 1 additional round, and that triggers the end of the game. Then end of scoring was very, very nice because on your board it actually tells you the end of game scoring here. You put all those in, you do the math, and that's what you ended up with.
Yeah, that was a very convenient. It was nice and it was so straighthtforward to just add up the points.
So in that case, that was very beneficial. Yep. I really liked that piece of it. So let's talk about it. Now that we kind of know how to play, I enjoyed this game a lot, guys. I really did. I liked the exploring. I liked the Tetris, the building. I liked all of this. I enjoyed the dice drafting even. This game really fit well. I know it's not a Hadrian's Wall.
Yeah.
But Hadrian's Wall is like double the time than this.
Well, this took us a while. I mean, it was a learning game because we were just starting to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a little clunky. I still don't get how, like, some of the dice could give you any action, or you had to have specific die faces for some of the actions.
No, it didn't. It couldn't give you any action. It could only give you 3 of the
actions.
actions.
You can use any die for conquer. You can do any die for tax. You can do any die for trade.
Right.
I don't like that part of it. I think it should have been rearranged a little differently on the board. Because to me, it looks like this die gives you these actions. This die gives you those actions.
You're just talking about the way it's laid out.
So it's a little clunky in my regard, in my opinion.
So this should have been moved down here, and then any dice.
It was hard for me to remember that,
okay.
and then some of it was just really tough to read and understand. Like, I didn't get the fish action until I read it a couple different times, and so it wasn't awful, just a little clunky.
Yeah, I agree. It was clunky. That part didn't bother me. My concern about clunkiness was some of the cards and some of the different actions were not fully explained very well on the card, and that meant you had to go back and look them up in the rule book. Thankfully, they were all there. We never had to go online for anything. But I don't like when you have to get clarity and have to refer back to the rule book all throughout the game.
Right.
And that made it awkward. The other thing that was awkward was the map at the center and the fact that we're all writing on that, especially with the colors being some of them orange and brown being as faded as they were and blending with each other. It was very hard to tell where borders of buildings overlap.
I think it's a great idea, just the execution.
Yeah.
Well, I think there should have been piles of tiles. So you just put the tiles on.
Yeah.
Just because and I get there's a player color aspect and you got to know what they are. It was I'm like, okay, where did I draw? I drew it, and I wasn't for sure where the boundaries were.
And, we don't bring it up on every game, but some games I think it blaringly becomes an issue. But I think if you have issues with color blindness, you would not be able to play this game.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be able to see what lines do what and where they go.
Right.
And it's very difficult. You're supposed to label your buildings, and because you don't have a whole lot of room to write, sometimes it's hard to read what this building was.
Yeah.
And you build 5 or 6 of them, you're going to forget.
Yeah. There's definitely some. The only thing with the shapes is, like, if you had pre-printed shapes, you'd have to have a ton of them because the cards are switched out.
Right.
So you would have to have one for each individual card that they put in the game to allow you to build it. And you may not know how many people build one type of building. So I can understand why they didn't do tiles. It would have been much more difficult to do tiles.
And probably much more expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, I get on the financial end why they didn't. But then at the same time, I'm almost like, well, then why not just give me a pad of paper so I can just, I don't know.
Well, then you can't have it interactive. You still have to have a central board.
You still have to have a central board.
Yeah, I mean, what you could have done was do tiles where you wrote the dry erase on the tile, and then you could then that would have worked. But it still
have a player pile.
Yeah, but it's still, in essence, you wouldn't be gaining much from what they did on the board. But so I understand why they did it. I just think the execution of it had some issues. I do like the dry erase because it makes it, you don't have to scrap a piece of paper and throw it away each time.
trees or
Yeah, and eventually running out and having to go out and either do photocopies or buying a new copy of the game for it. So yeah, I don't mind that. I mean,
I think that if it was bigger, it would probably solve a lot of problems.
that probably would have been good to make the board is pretty small.
Yeah,
and it doesn't need to be that small.
So like if there was like almost like they have the designated tracks for the path. It's just so narrow that, and the color selection. I think it's size and color. It just shows better, brighter colors, and it's a bigger board. I don't think I'd have anywhere near the problem I did.
But even with all of that, I love the concept of this game.
Yeah.
Again, it's Roman. I love most Roman games I've played. This doesn't fall out of that. I really did enjoy this game. I like the fact that I love the player boards being different characters. I love that. And
that was absolutely great. And I love my little synopsis up here. Like, okay, I am a bureaucrat. Okay, like I was able to kind of, all right, that tells me what I'm supposed to be doing. And I like that a lot.
And we played 4 of how many characters?
I think there's there's 5 in the base game and 3.
So I mean, we only play with half of them.
There's there's 8 or 9. I think.
So there's a lot of replay in there because we randomized it, so you could get a totally different character next time. It'd be a different game for you.
Yeah.
So score, guys. It's time to give it a score.
I think it's a solid 8. It's a fun game. There's some issues with it, but I think it's an 8.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you, Rob. I think 8 is a fair score for this. I think it's solid. I think it's not quite up to what Hadrian's Wall is as far as the game of it, but it is a nice, chunky, meaty roll and write, which, again, there's not enough of those on the market. There's a whole ton of really light roll and writes, but getting good ones that are meaty is rare.
Yeah, so I actually agree with you on the 8. I think 8 is actually spot on for the actual gameplay of this. It's very nice. It's very good, and I'm, at the end of the day, I'm going to play this again. I'm going to enjoy it no matter, what you guys felt to be clunky, I was fine with. I know I will play this again, and I will know. Please play this again.
And I think after a couple playthroughs, it'll be really easy to teach other people. So I don't think it'd be hard for people to pick up if you guys are comfortable with it. So instead of having to read the rules.
I think this being the first time playing through, we had to get through a lot of that clunkiness up front. Now we know it.
I think it'll deserve multiple playthroughs. I think it'll reward you.
Yeah, I agree. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we are super excited to see you guys hopefully at Gen Con, or at least hopefully here on the channel. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.